Revenge with Anjo.
When Edwin Carter pulled into his driveway after 2 exhausting weeks in Vancouver, he felt as if every bone in his body had turned to stone. He had flown overnight after staying by his mother's hospital bed following her stroke. She was finally stable, but all he could think about was getting home to his wife, Laura, who lived with early-onset Alzheimer's. 2 weeks apart felt like months. But as he stepped out of his car, something felt wrong. The house was unusually dark. Laura always kept a lamp on in the living room because she hated shadows. Frowning, he grabbed a suitcase and approached the front door, fishing for his keys. Then he heard a faint, rhythmic thumping. It sounded desperate, weak, like someone trying to call for help through a wall. Edwin froze, his breath caught in his throat. "Laura," he whispered. The thumping grew louder, more frantic. Panic flared in his chest. His keys slipped from his shaking hand as he jammed one into the lock. The moment he stepped inside, the sound became clearer. Someone was pounding on something, and he could hear a muffled voice. It wasn't coming from the living room or the kitchen. It was coming from the basement. Edwin's heart pounded as he dropped his suitcase and sprinted toward the basement door. His hands shook so violently he nearly missed the handle. The door was secured with a heavy-duty padlock, something he had never seen before. "Laura," he shouted. A hoarse cry came from the other side, barely more than a whisper. That was all he needed. He bolted to the garage, grabbed a crowbar, and returned to the door with adrenaline flooding his veins. The metal lock snapped after 3 vicious strikes. When he threw the door open, a foul smell hit him: urine, sweat, stale air. He flicked on the light and staggered backward at the sight before him. Laura sat at the bottom of the stairs, trembling violently. Her nightgown was torn, stained, and her hair stuck to her forehead. She looked smaller than he remembered, gaunt, pale, fragile. She squinted up at him as though trying to connect faces to memories. "Edwin," she whispered. Is that really you?" He ran down the stairs and scooped her into his arms. She felt weightless, cold. "I'm here, Laura," he murmured, voice breaking. "I've got you." He carried her upstairs, trying not to fall apart. "Who did this to you? Why were you down there?" But she could only cry softly in his arms. Edwin gently laid Laura on the couch and grabbed his phone with trembling fingers. He dialed 911 immediately. As he reported the situation, he scanned the house. Something was off. Furniture was moved. Boxes he'd never seen were stacked against the wall. Laura's pill organizer, her lifeline, was missing from the kitchen. When the paramedics arrived minutes later, they rushed to Laura's side. One knelt beside her and checked her vitals. "She's severely dehydrated," the medic said. "Malnourished. And she's showing early signs of hypothermia." "How long has she been like this?" Edwin swallowed hard. "I don't know. I've been away for 2 weeks. I left her with our daughter." The paramedic paused. "When did you last speak to your daughter?" Edwin rubbed his face. "A week ago." Then her phone went to voicemail. The medic exchanged a look with her partner, but kept working. They secured Laura on a stretcher. Edwin rode in the ambulance, holding her cold hand. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, love. I'm so sorry I wasn't here." At St. Augustine Hospital, doctors moved quickly. As they worked, a nurse pulled Edwin aside. "Mr. Carter," she said gently, "was your wife locked in that basement for the full 2 weeks?" The question crushed him like a weight. Edwin sat in the waiting room, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. A police officer arrived an hour later, a calm, serious man who introduced himself as Detective Ray Donovan from the Elder Protection Unit. Edwin walked him through everything: his trip to Vancouver, leaving Laura with their daughter Marissa, and the daily phone calls that suddenly stopped. "Marissa said everything was fine," Edwin murmured. "She told me not to worry. She promised she would take care of her mother." Detective Donovan scribbled notes. "While you were away, did you authorize any paperwork? Power of attorney? Legal changes?" "No," Edwin said immediately. "Absolutely not." The detective's jaw tightened. "I need to ask because situations like this often involve financial exploitation." Edwin's stomach twisted. "What are you saying?" The detective closed his notebook. Right now, we're investigating. But the basement door being padlocked from the outside is extremely concerning. Edwin felt sick. Do you think Marissa did this? Detective Donovan didn't answer. We'll look into everything. Laura was kept for observation, rehydrated, and monitored. She drifted in and out of confusion, sometimes recognizing Edwin, sometimes asking why the lights were off. On the second day, Edwin returned home to search for clues, and the truth he found nearly destroyed him. The first thing Edwin checked was the basement. Seeing it with clear eyes made his stomach churn. The padlock hung broken on the floor. A bucket sat in one corner. A thin blanket lay on the cold concrete. The light bulb had been removed completely, plunging Laura into total darkness for days. Who could do this to her? Edwin whispered. Upstairs, he moved through each room, noticing details he'd missed the night before. Marissa's laptop sat open on the kitchen table. The password was saved automatically. He hesitated only a moment before clicking. What he found shattered him. Scanned documents, signatures, bank statements, power of attorney forms, all bearing Laura's shaky handwriting. He opened a folder labeled Prospect Ridge Investment Fund. His hands trembled as he read transfer details, $80,000 withdrawn from their savings, $90,000 taken out through a home equity line of credit. $170,000 total. All funneled into an investment company registered to Drew Olson, Marissa's husband. No, Edwin gasped, gripping the counter. He clicked through more files, emails between Marissa and Drew discussing timelines, Laura's confusion, and how Edwin would be away long enough for them to move the money. They had planned it. They had used her illness. They had locked her away to keep her from talking. Edwin leaned over the sink and retched. Edwin immediately called Detective Donovan. Within an hour, the detective arrived with 2 officers. Edwin guided them through every file, every document, every dated transfer. This is planned exploitation, Donovan said. And the basement confirms unlawful confinement. Edwin stared at him. Where is my daughter? Where is Drew? We're working on it, the detective replied. He asked Edwin for Marissa's address, a condo in Harborview District. Officers headed there immediately. Later that afternoon, Donovan called. Edwin. They're gone, he said. The condo is mostly empty. Looks like they moved out in a hurry. Edwin's heart pounded. But the police found something, Donovan continued. Airline documents. One-way tickets to Malta. A rental agreement for an apartment in Valletta. They were planning to leave the country. Edwin slumped into a chair. They were going to run? Donovan's voice softened. Mr. Carter, if you hadn't come home early, your wife might not have survived. Edwin pressed his hands over his eyes as realization washed over him. Marissa had known he would stay in Vancouver longer. She must have counted on it. If Laura had died in that basement, they would have played the grieving children and disappeared overseas with the money. The thought made him shake uncontrollably. The next 48 hours were chaos. The story hit local news stations. Daughter and son-in-law wanted for elder abuse. Edwin ignored every call. Reporters, neighbors, even people he hadn't spoken to in years. His only focus was Laura. On day 4, she was discharged. Still fragile, still confused, but alive. She clung to Edwin like a child. Where's Marissa? She asked softly. Is she coming home soon? Edwin paused. Not tonight, sweetheart. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. That night, he sat beside her bed until she fell asleep, then returned to the kitchen to stare at the laptop again. Every document, every transfer, every email told the same horrifying story. Marissa and Drew had not simply stolen their money. They had plotted it carefully, researched laws, found a shady notary willing to overlook Laura's condition, and targeted Edwin's absence. Detectives were tracking airline lists, border crossings, relatives' addresses, anything. On day 6, just as Edwin was trying to help Laura eat breakfast, his phone rang. It was Detective Donovan. We got them, he said. They were arrested at the airport trying to board a flight to London before heading to Malta. Edwin closed his eyes. Good, he whispered. Just good. But he felt no satisfaction. only numbness. The charges came swiftly: elder abuse, financial exploitation, unlawful confinement, fraud, forgery. Drew faced extra charges because his so-called investment fund was actually a Ponzi scheme, targeting vulnerable seniors with promises of impossible returns. A week later, Edwin met with prosecutor Elaine Porter, a sharp woman with kind eyes. She laid out the case. "Mr. Carter, this is one of the worst elder abuse cases we've handled. The intentional confinement, the use of your wife's cognitive decline, the financial theft, it's severe." Edwin nodded silently. "We will pursue maximum sentences," she continued. "Your daughter could face 8 to 12 years. Drew, 10 to 15. Edwin swallowed. "And the money?" Elaine shook her head gently. "Most of it is gone. Moved, spent, or used to keep the scheme afloat. We will pursue restitution orders, but recovery is unlikely." Edwin sighed deeply. Did Marissa know about the fraud? Elaine opened a folder. Yes. The emails show she not only knew she helped. She recruited investors. She prepared false financial statements. She knew exactly what she was doing. Edwin's jaw clenched, his heart cracking all over again. His daughter wasn't manipulated. She wasn't tricked. She was an architect of the entire plan. That truth nearly crushed him. The bail hearing was torture. Edwin sat at the back of the courtroom, barely able to breathe. Marissa entered in an orange jumpsuit, her wrists cuffed. She looked smaller than he remembered, her hair messy, her face blotchy from crying. Her lawyer argued for her release: no criminal record, community ties, mental health struggles. But Prosecutor Porter tore through the argument. "Your Honor, she is a clear flight risk. She already attempted to flee the country with stolen funds and left her cognitively impaired mother locked in a basement without food or water." The judge agreed. Bail denied. As Marissa was led away, she turned, spotted Edwin, and mouthed, "Dad, please." Edwin stood and walked out. He couldn't bring himself to look at her. That same week, he hired a civil litigation attorney, Jonathan Hale, who specialized in elder exploitation cases. "You have grounds for a strong lawsuit," Hale told him. "We'll sue them for the stolen funds and damages. Even if they have nothing now, future wages and assets can be seized." Edwin agreed instantly. Hale filed suit, Edwin and Laura Carter versus Marissa Carter and Drew Olson, demanding $170,000 in stolen funds and an additional $200,000 in damages. Edwin signed the papers with a heavy heart. Edwin also filed a complaint with the Accounting Association. Marissa had used her professional qualifications to lure investors into Drew's fraudulent fund. Her license was suspended immediately pending trial. But none of it brought Edwin any comfort. The months that followed were brutal. Laura's Alzheimer's rapidly worsened. Her neurologist explained that trauma often accelerated cognitive decline. Some mornings she didn't recognize their own living room. Some nights she woke screaming, terrified of the dark. Edwin hired a full-time caregiver to help, but the costs were overwhelming. Between medical bills, lawyer fees, and the new mortgage payments, thanks to the home equity loan Marissa opened, they were drowning financially. Meanwhile, the criminal case moved forward. In January, Edwin testified at the preliminary hearing, describing how he found Laura, how he discovered the documents, how Marissa and Drew had plotted everything. Marissa's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim manipulated by Drew. The judge wasn't convinced. "You are a trained accountant," he told her. "You understood every action you took." The case proceeded to trial. A date was set for June. Edwin spent the next months holding Laura's hand through confusion, hospital visits, and frightening lapses in memory.